we need to remind people, wake up, come out, get activated, and do it in a boisterous, joyful, because there needs to be joy in everything that we do. Democracy is messy and joyful. That's what fascism isn't.
Welcome to the Practivist Pod, the practice of activism made practical.
Today we talk about the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination, particularly the attacks on free speech and lies about political violence. And then we look at Trump's tanking economy and how he really, really, really doesn't want us to talk about it.
No, he does not. Then we talk to two volunteers in DIY activism who are helping spread our messages of resistance and hope all over the country with the Visibility Brigade.
I'm Jessica Craven.
I'm Steve Pearson.
Stay strong. It won't be long. Yeah, yeah. We will build a better world.
Hi, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm okay, a little bit under the weather, as you can hear. Excuse me, but it only
got a little cold there.
It only enhances my radio voice. I get that gravitas that I miss in my normal life. So
you do. You sound gravelly. You sound you got a little Lauren Bacall thing going on there.
Oh, yeah.
No one on this probably knows who Lauren Bacall is, but just say it
I actually
anyway.
think they do. I think our listeners probably know exactly who Lauren Bacall is, and after I record this, I'm going to go record some movie trailers. So.
Yeah, and some coffee ads.
Got my movie trailer. Yeah,
coffee.
Good to the last drop. Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you
Very
doing?
Sad about Robert Redford this week. I feel like we need to shout out Robert Redford as well, since we're talking about like old movie stars. Yeah, sad. Very sad.
100%. What, a remarkable, obviously, career, iconic movie star, but also, in terms of what we do, he was one of the first that really put political dramas on the map. All the President's Men happened because he really championed that script and thought that the telling of Watergate would be a really interesting and compelling narrative. And there hadn't been a lot of political kind of thrillers and stuff like that before that. So but yeah, and he was also Sundance Kid. So
yeah, he was very good looking, but you have to get past the looks and remember that he was also, and I think a lot of people have talked about this, just a decent guy, cared deeply about the environment and about protecting wild spaces. And I think at a moment where most of our public sphere has sort of devolved into bread and circuses on the best of days, it is, I think we all feel very nostalgic for public figures. Gravitas, speaking of gravitas, and intelligence and concern for the public welfare. And he really appeared to have all of those things. So, yeah.
Yes,
anyway,
a giant, we lost, yeah. Well, it's been a challenging week for sure since I got back from DC. How have you been holding up with everything? The rhetoric has escalated, at least online, and from frankly, our president and the vice president and the administration. It's nothing new, but it has been an amplified week, to say the least. How are you handling that?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, now that I'm out of my fetal position, I'm doing fine. No, I mean, it's been a terrible week. It's been a terrible, ugly, depressing, heartbreaking, scary week. You can't pretend otherwise. I think that we have an opportunity to talk about it today from an angle that is not just going to stir up more upset in everybody, because I think everybody is already plenty upset. Everything is heated and amplified, and it's scary. I mean, I think underneath all of this, there's a tremendous amount of fear. People are afraid. People on the right are afraid. People on the left are afraid. And one thing I do take some comfort from is, I took the opportunity this week to do a little research on political violence and the way Americans think about political violence. I love G. Elliott Morris. He has a Substack called, oh God darn it, it's going to come to me in a second, and then I'll come back and say what it is. But he talked. I know that's terrible, but I think it's called By the Numbers. He talked about how when you actually go out and poll Americans and you ask careful questions, not just like vague. There's good polling and bad polling. When you do good polling on this, the truth of the matter is that a vanishingly small number of Americans actually want political violence, support it under any circumstances. The vast majority don't want it, but one side tends to think that the other side does want it. So Republicans are afraid that people on the left love political violence, and people on the left are afraid that people on the right do. But the truth is, very few people from either side actually support it, want it, engage in it. So I try to really remember, and I think that's one way we can stay sane in a moment like this, is to remember that the vast majority of Americans do not want this. They don't want it. They don't support it. And that helps me get out of my fetal position a little bit.
It's a really great point, and I'm glad you pulled out the, actual polling on that too, because, that's what I believe. And, there's a lot of people who are afraid that where we are at will devolve into a full-on civil war, and I just don't believe that's the case because of exactly what you just said. I think, it's very likely that more people are going to get killed, because you do have, bad actors, right? People who are extreme, who are willing to do that. And importantly, ready access to guns. And so that's a bad combination, but that's a very small number of people. And, what is just obviously abhorrent and escalating all the rhetoric and is just mind-numbingly stupid is how this administration is amping up the rhetoric. When we look to our leaders in these times when we're scared, when we're in crisis as a country, to tamper down the rhetoric and calm everyone down and make everyone feel safe and make sure that they know that law enforcement is on top of any threats and all of that. We've got the president, lying, and the vice president going on Charlie Kirk's podcast and lying about, where violence comes from in this country. And then, of course, Kash Patel's complete inept handling of all of this and centering himself as only, look, we're podcasters, so I don't want to throw stones, but I'm not the running the FBI right now, so nor will I ever. So it's,
well, I don't know. It doesn't seem that you need to have any qualifications to do that anymore, Steve. So, dream big. Maybe you will if you want to.
Dream big. This is what's also horrible about all of these, Sean Duffy and these unqualified people. It makes anyone think, oh, sure, I could run, I could take a cabinet position. I can do that. It's like, yes, you would do better than these people, pretty much anyone listening to this podcast. But we actually do want qualified, experienced folks running our country. And especially when it comes to law enforcement and, and we're being flippant about this, and it's a huge tragedy, that happened. And, we don't want that to happen to anyone. But, I guess circling back to the initial point is, these tend to be smaller episodes, but they become larger when you don't have someone at the top calming things down, instead, bringing more heat to the issue.
Right. Well, that's what G. Elliott Morris, and by the way, it's called Strength in Numbers, is his very excellent Substack. And what he said is that the one thing that makes the difference is political leadership. That at a moment when something like this happens, you need everybody immediately speaking out against political violence. And unfortunately, we didn't get that. We got that from everybody on the left. We got it from a few Republicans. And then we got this absolute just catastrophe of lies and incendiary language from the president, the vice president, and so many more. And then, whatever. We don't even need to go into it. It's very disappointing. It's very dangerous. And all the rest of us can do, I mean, I don't have a huge platform, but would use whatever platform we have to go out there and say, this is not what I don't want this. Nobody wants this. Like, everybody take a breath and hope that in the long run, cooler heads prevail. But I will just say, on the subject of Kash Patel, it's also very scary that we don't have a functioning FBI right now. The woman who was a 25-year veteran who should have overseen this case, I believe she ran the Utah field office, she'd been fired because they accused her of being a quote-unquote DEI hire. And so she was not there to run this investigation. And it's really important for people to recognize Kash Patel did not solve this case. The FBI did not solve this case. They accused 2 people, I believe, wrongly. This kid turned himself in. His family turned him in. There was no law enforcement work here. I mean, I'm sorry to say it. I'm sure there's good people still working at the FBI, but it's very important to really recognize how badly Kash Patel bungled this investigation, because next time that could be fatal. We need qualified people at the FBI, and every qualified person has been fired. That is a problem. And the few qualified people who are left, and we don't talk about this enough, they've been reassigned to do ICE raids. People are being taken from all of our law enforcement agencies, not just the FBI, but people investigating sex trafficking, people investigating drug trafficking. They're all being taken to do ICE raids. It is, I'm sorry, Steve's mom, it's a clusterfuck. And it is going to have horrible, horrible consequences. It really is. This is not a joke. And also, domestic terrorism, international terrorism, these are things that are no longer being investigated.
That's right.
And when that stuff happens, it doesn't care what party you are, doesn't care who you voted for. You just have to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And we should all not want that to happen. Sorry. Yeah.
Of course. No, you're right. And there's been some reporting and some whistleblowers talking about the enhanced threats, terrorism threats that we face right now because, because of everything that you just articulated. So, these are the things that we really need to be worried about and strengthening up. And, Pam Bondi was under attack, I just want to say these attacks against our First Amendment rights, attacks against free speech that, Pam Bondi came out and said, we're going to prosecute hate speech. Okay. What is that? They're trying to classify what we're saying right now, anything that's anti-administration as hate speech, as a pretense to, shut us down or anyone else who is criticizing the president. Quickly, she had to backtrack on that because that is protected by the First Amendment. And across the aisle, a broad swath of people, the Wall Street Journal, came out, everyone saying, no. And then Trump was in
and a bunch of MAGAs, hardcore MAGAs came out and were like, what the hell are you talking about? She got it very bad from the right. So
that's right. If you're going to use Charlie Kirk as a martyr for free speech, it cuts both ways. And so
totally.
This has happened before. Obviously, it hasn't been so in our face and dire and scary, and the rhetoric has been really amplified, as I said, in the last week. But Trump has been using all kinds of pretense to try to shut down our democratic organizers and anyone who is up against the stuff against Act Blue, trying to revoke nonprofits tax exempt status and cripple our organizations. All of it is because he is so underwater and he wants to stay in power. And, he'll also use, I'll just say it, any excuse he can to avoid talking about Epstein and his role in that, because that's where he's, very underwater, even in his own base as well. So, it's a scary time, but I want to remind people that this is the same playbook. He's been doing this for years, and we'll continue to fight it by, talking about the issues that matter to people, which is the economy, first of all. And, Trump's economy is pretty damn shitty right now, and people are feeling it.
It is so bad. I mean, Steve, this week we saw everything from, inflation is creeping up, prices are up at their highest rate, and it's mathematical. It's every month they've gotten more, but they're really starting to creep up, and you can't whitewash. There's no way to tell voters that they are not experiencing higher prices at the store.
That's right.
Because everybody knows. I mean, my husband buys coffee. Holy crap. I mean, you see the prices are just skyrocketing.
You don't buy coffee? So, you don't get coffee? You're not a coffee drinker?
I drink tea, and that's also gotten more expensive.
Wow.
Tea is also more expensive. Tea and coffee both.
Right.
But coffee, my husband, it's dramatic.
I live on coffee. I thought we had that in common. So, I don't know. I'm learning new things.
I eschew coffee. I don't drink it at all. I had a problem with it. I had to give it up, sort of like it's like I was like a coffee drunk. So I had to stop.
That's me.
But
sorry to digress. Sorry to interrupt the important rant.
No, it's
but
fine.
I felt like that was important to highlight also.
I'm basically a tea snob at this point, and I look down on coffee drinkers. I'm sorry to say that because I know most of you are, but like those of you who drink tea understand. Anyway, so what I am trying to do in my messaging, and I really encourage everybody else to do this as well, because I do think that Republicans, and especially Trump, has a very keen sense of keep them divided and keep them distracted. Keep them divided, keep them distracted. We talk a lot about the distraction, but we don't talk a lot about the division and those combined things. And what I really feel they're trying to keep us from looking at right now is the fact that he is failing on the economy in a way that is absolutely shocking, and it's all him. It is really his policies, his tariffs that nobody else wants, that Congress didn't approve, that, Americans largely don't support, that economists have said are a catastrophic idea. He is doing this. His tariffs, his mass deportations, and they are a 1-2 punch that are sending us very quickly into a recession. Everybody can see it. We had a report yesterday or the day before that credit ratings are creeping down at the fastest rate they have since 2009. What happened in 2009? Trying to remember. I believe it was almost an economic collapse. These things, black unemployment is way up, which is also an economic indicator on every single indicator. Flashing red lights. And so Trump does another incendiary thing because, God forbid, people should pay attention to where he is failing. And let us never forget that he promised that on day one he would bring down prices. The opposite has happened because of deliberate choices he has made and continues to make every single day, knowing they are hurting Americans. So I encourage people to focus on that. There are real problems with political violence. There are real things to discuss there, but let us not get so distracted by that argument that we forget about the real kitchen table issues that are affecting Americans, our healthcare, the economy, gun violence, climate change, women's health. We could go on and on. These are real things, and they are happening right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so thank you for articulating that so well, because it's really what we need to be talking about. And, we talked about this in terms of our little kind of mild debriefing of the presidential and what I thought the Democrats really didn't do well was articulate how people were feeling. I think that they were trying to, you look at the charts and the graphs and where stuff was, and the economy was doing well, under Biden's leadership. But people weren't feeling that, and prices were still expensive. And you can't argue, like you said, against how people are feeling when they're going to the store and they can't afford to buy the stuff they used to be able to afford. And this is what Trump ran on, that he was going to lower prices day one. And this is what Democrats are really serious about doing when they get back in power, is actually lowering prices, actually making it better for people and easier to live. And healthcare prices are going up now as a result of this big, ugly bill that's starting to hit places. We're already seeing hospital closures as a result of that too. And even for people who can afford health insurance on their own, their premiums are going up. Their costs are going up. So this is what we need to be talking about. This is what you need to, keep hammering down on, because this is what most people care about. It really is their pocketbook. So
also, I think shout out to farmers and what's happening with farmers that is getting ignored this week, that soybean farmers are in I can't even express how much trouble they're in specifically because of Trump's tariffs. China was like the single biggest purchaser of soybeans. Last year, they bought, I don't know, $5 billion worth of soybeans. This year, none. Because of the tariffs, they're buying them from, I want to say, Brazil instead. And soybean farmers are like, we're dying here. Like, we're literally, this is the worst it's ever been. Then you have farmers. I read an article in Politico yesterday about farmers in Pennsylvania who were Trump supporters, but who are now like, we have no one to work at our farms. We can't, there's no one. We made a mistake. Like this was a mistake. Like we are very unhappy with Trump. And we just have to keep hammering at these things, at these tariffs and the mass deportations. It's not just one, it's the 1-2 punch of taking all of these people out of the workforce. The agricultural workforce has shrunk 7% in the last 5 months. That 155,000 workers have come out of the agricultural workforce. Who is going to pick our food? Who is going to care for our dairy cows? Like, this is real stupidity on the part of the administration. And so every time they try to get us angry at each other again, I really encourage people to bring it back. They want us fighting, because if we're fighting each other, we're not looking up at the billionaires who are getting rich while the rest of us are losing everything.
Yeah.
Very important to keep talking about that. So
thank you. And we could have a deeper conversation about, the farming, agricultural industry, and also the push by tech companies who are beholden to Trump to develop more automation and make that essential to those farmers, because there is underneath the surface, there is a massive investment in automation that is supporting what is happening here. Is really, really dangerous to our workforce in general. So but that's a whole other worm.
But I will just say, like, if you talk to farmers, because we'll stop with this, but I've done a deep dive video on this. If you talk to farmers, they're like, you can't automate picking strawberries, for example.
No, you can't.
They are fragile. You can't. These farm workers, many of whom are undocumented, are highly skilled workers. And that's what people refuse to acknowledge. Maybe they will now. It's highly skilled work.
I know.
It's brutally
they know
difficult.
That. They know that, but they want to develop it anyway. And in hollowing out the workforce, they leave no choice but to for these farmers to try these less effective ways of picking their strawberries, and so it's all connected. It turns out it's always about money, and the billionaires that
especially
that
for
everything.
Tech companies. It's all for tech companies, automation companies, AI. It is unbelievable. Like, at some point, America is going to have to come together and fight back against this, because it is. There's a real villain in this story. There really is.
Why don't we do that right now? Why don't we all come together and fight back against it right now?
Now.
Yeah. Sing it, sister.
That's it. I'm not going to sing the whole song.
Well, let's talk about what we have to do this week. First of all, in our interview, we talked with Visibility Brigade, which is a great way. I mean, talk about perfect guests for the Practivist pod. These are literal practivists who are doing practical activism and stuff that anyone can really do. They have a toolkit. So we have a link to visibilitybrigade.com in our show notes. Check them out and join in. There's chapters, I think, pushing 300 all over the country now. Obviously, we have Prop 50, which we talk about every week. We haven't talked about at all today yet. We are right now, because it is so important that we get this done. We only have 47 days till Election Day, Jess. And then beyond that, we have 18 days until October 8th, which is when ballots start dropping all over our state. So now is the time to, if you're not in California, make some phone calls, help us out. If you're in California, please consider knocking on doors. This is a really great way to canvass. If you're in some of our swing districts, it's a great way to loosen up some of those doors, knocking for this proposition, and making those contacts that are so important. So we have a link also in our show notes to opportunities to get involved there. And lastly, a reminder, No Kings on October 18th. The nokings.org link is also up. This has got to be the biggest one when we talk about, why don't we all rise up and do something about this? Like, let's all rise up on October 18th.
100%. 100%. It's got to be huge, you guys. It's got to be huge. And they want us to not turn out. They want to scare us. They want to intimidate us. They want to, oh, we're going to prosecute people who do hate speech. Oh, does that mean I shouldn't protest? No, it means you should protest. It means every one of us is going to have to summon our courage. We've done this a million times. We always feel like, oh, what if something goes wrong? And it virtually never does. Obviously there are exceptions to everything, but
right.
It's very important. And the more of us are out there, the safer we are. So it's huge.
By the way,
that is.
Can I just say, and you know this very well because you were documenting it the whole time, but as someone who has lived in LA during the National Guard occupation and was in DC during the National Guard occupation and is hearing more threats of the National Guard going to Memphis and Chicago or wherever else, can I just say the National Guard, it's horrible. It's a complete waste of resources. It's, impeachable offense to be using our military in this way. But they're just like standing around, like literally in DC, they were doing landscaping, They don't have anything to do. It's not like the military is going around in an aggressive way, rounding up people or stopping people from their constitutional right to protest or anything like that. It's all show. It's all bluster. They're not allowed to. Yeah.
And it's costing $1 million a day, Steve. $1 million a day for these deployments for them to pick up garbage. And let me tell you, I can guarantee you they are not happy about it either. I mean, can you imagine having signed up for the National Guard and having to do that crap? You've got families, you've got jobs, and you have to step away to basically fluff Donald Trump's ego. I mean, that's what it is. Fluffing. And, Google the term. Sorry,
they are fluffers.
Gross.
They're
fluffers. And
Donald Trump has turned the National Guard into fluffers. That's Jessica Craven's direct quote, not mine.
I said it. Yeah, but it's true. It's sad. It's sad because these are honorable people who largely really want to serve their country, and they're doing it for all the right reasons. They don't have a choice. I mean, maybe they do. I don't know about that, but someone can weigh in. But I think for the most part, they feel they have to go. And it's crap duty. It's crap duty. You've got protesters, hating on you, and understandably, I mean, I hated on them when they were in my city too. But like ultimately, most of these people are not at fault for these policies. The policies are bad. The choices are bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can move on from that.
So show up at No Kings is the point. And Jess, what's your reason for hope this week?
Well, I had a couple different ones I wanted to do, as always, but I'm going to stick with, and again, I'm a little worried about pronunciation. I think it's Jair Bolsonaro going to prison, being convicted of sentenced to decades in prison for attempting a coup. It is just really nice to see a nation, especially in the face of huge threats from the Trump administration, to punish them for doing this, which is in and of itself mind-blowing.
Unbelievable. Mind-blowing.
But that he is facing consequences. It is nice to see consequences for atrocious political behavior. And we've seen it also in other places recently, but I'm speaking about that right now. It's nice to see this person go to jail for a long time. I think it's 27 years. I dream of a day when our country has real, consequences for illegal behavior from politicians. All of them. Yeah. So
me too. That's a great reason for hope. And I suppose a good segue into my reason for hope too, because, if we want anything resembling consequences or oversight or, anything to keep this, wannabe dictator that we have running our country right now in check, it's winning the midterms. And again, all of the stuff that he is doing to distract from the disastrous economy, from his implication in the Epstein files, from how underwater he is, even on immigration, the Republican signature issue and everything, is because he knows he's going to get shellacked in the midterms, and he wants to stay in power. Yeah. And the reason why he's trying to redistrict in all these Republican states, and why California has stepped up and fought back to try to level that playing field, is because he knows he's going to get shellacked. And the reason he knows he's going to get shellacked is because Republicans have been getting shellacked. Love that word. I'll say it over and over again. In 38 of the last 40 elections here in 2025, by 15 points, by an average 15-point overperformance. And I mean, if that doesn't give you hope, and just like stay focused on the job that we have to do, folks, because there is work to be done. We just gave you some stuff to do, especially around Prop 50, but some important elections in Virginia and in New Jersey. There are places to keep this momentum going. And what this is going to do, when you see overperformance like this overall, it is going to give Republicans pause. I know it doesn't feel that way. And I don't want people to be like, oh, they're all bought and sold and they're, going to, follow dear leader. Most of them are very comfortable doing that. But, good candidates, good Republicans, strong Republican candidates are not going to want to run in this climate.
That's right.
And when we see strong fundraising, when we see strong overperformance, when we see strong volunteer engagement, it's going to make them say, I'm going to sit this one out. This isn't my time. I'm going to wait for some of this shit to blow over and maybe run in a few years. And so you're going to have this secondary tier of weak candidates who are going to be running, and it's going to make our chances of winning back the House and taking back some modicum of power that we so desperately need that much better. So this gives me a lot of hope. Keep up the good work, everybody. Stay focused on the job that we have to do.
And we also saw 2 Republican retirements announced, I believe, last week. And according, again, to G. Elliott Morris, who I swear to God is not paying me to talk about him all the time, but you can also predict the outcome of midterms based on how many retirements happen in advance. And he sort of posits that the pattern right now shows a big Democratic win based on how many Republicans are retiring right now. And the more Republican retirements we see, the better you can feel about our chances. Doesn't mean we don't have to do the work, just means our chances are good, and they know our chances are good. So. Yep.
Yeah, they wouldn't be working so hard to rig this and fix it if they could just stand on their policies. If they felt like they had the right message for America, then that seems quaint. That's what democracy and elections used to be like. 2 folks going up there and making their case for what they think is going to be best for their constituents. But that's not what the Republicans are doing. And they're because they're losing big time. So that gives me hope. And another thing that gives me hope is when I see people, normal, ordinary people, stepping out of their comfort zone, trying something new and making such a huge impact. And that's exactly what these folks did with the Invisibility, with the Visibility Brigade. So here's my interview with them. Dana is the founder and one of the leaders of the Visibility Brigade, and Peter heads up the Utah chapter of the Visibility Brigade. And we've talked about, Jess and I have talked about Visibility Brigade on this show a bunch of times before, so it's really great to have you both on. Welcome to the Practivist Pod.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here with you, Steve.
Yeah. I always like to get a little bit of origin story before we get into the work at hand. So I really don't know anything about your all's background except for the little bit before we started recording. So why don't we start with you, Dana? What's your background? What's your day gig? And then, how did you come up with the idea for starting up the Visibility Brigade?
Sure. So I'm a filmmaker and I teach film as well at a number of different colleges and universities. The Visibility Brigade originated in the beginning of 2020 because I was looking around and thinking, everything seems normal when it isn't, and we need to disrupt that. And there's an overpass close to where I live that's just fantastic. It's got an elevator on one side and a ramp on the other, and ample parking on both sides, and you can see straight through it. It's fully fenced around. And I thought, wow, that's a really great opportunity to put up a message that thousands of people can see during rush hour. And so I had no idea, like, what was going to happen when we first did it. We went up there, and I remember my wife saying to me as I was leaving the house, have a good time and please don't get arrested. Because I had no idea. So that's kind of it started that way. And, we worked out the kinks over 5 years or so in terms of, because we certainly didn't invent the idea of overpass actions. That's been going on for a long time. I think what we did was we kind of fine-tuned and finessed it in the sense of having there be messages that we changed on a weekly basis. So it's very dynamic. And then also we are waving over the messages. We generally do this in daytime so that people see us standing over the messages. That's a very powerful and profound thing for not just the people who are driving past, but for us too. It creates a connection. It reminds people that they're not alone and that they can do something and that they should be, aware of what's going on in our country and be active citizens. So that was kind of how this whole thing evolved. And then last year I was walking around with an activist friend in Pennsylvania. We were knocking on doors and we were talking, and I shared with her about the Visibility Brigade. And she said, you should create a toolkit. And I thought, well, nobody's going to want to read that. She's like, oh no, everybody's going to want to read it and do it. I was like, no, I don't think so. I think that it's hard enough on a weekly basis, which is what we've been doing for close to 6 years now, on a weekly basis doing this. Like, no one's going to want. And so she's like, no, she said, I'm going to start the toolkit and you can finish it. So she started writing something and I took it from there. And I was like, okay, fine. I finished it off and kind of put it out there. And I have to say, Jess Craven, my hat goes off to her, because from the outstart, she's been incredibly supportive of what we've been doing, and as she was the one who kind of said, sounds like you got a movement here. And I was like, oh, I guess we do. And then she's like, hey, maybe you need a website. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess we do. So
that's funny.
That's the thing, is that she's encouraged us, we encourage other people, and it's grown, exponentially since that point. So since that toolkit was created in January of this year, we are now closing in on 300 groups all across the country. And it's a very vibrant, active community. And the way that I think about the Visibility Brigade is it really is a metaphor for connectivity across the country. It's a bridge. It's a bridge, literally. It's a bridge metaphor.
Right. It's a bridge with a bunch of signs on it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's a very special thing. And that's, I think that, I've gotten to meet Peter and so many other wonderful people through the process of doing this. So it's a really fantastic thing. And it's just, growing, and the communications that people are having we have like a whole ecosystem of signal groups for every state and all these different topics, and all the leaders all these groups are joining in and having these amazing conversations. And there's just so much positivity and encouragement. It's what keeps me going, frankly, in these difficult times.
Absolutely. That's very cool. And I mean, excuse me, the community aspect of it. I love that it's not just putting up the banner on overpass, but being there and waving. And when you go to your website, which of course we'll link to on our show notes, when you go to the website, you guys are all smiling. It's pictures of people smiling and cheering, and that's what we find in this work, that when we come together, even in these, really difficult and dark times, we find joy in the community.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I love that. I didn't know the role that Jess had in it. So that's cool too. And Peter, did you start early on, or did you get a hold of this toolkit in January and run with it? How did you get started with the Visibility Brigade?
Yeah, so personally, and also the group that I represent, Utah Overpass Action, we are quite new to this game, so I feel a little bit unworthy of appearing here on the podcast with you and Dana. We started up in just late April of this year. My background is in international humanitarian aid, but of course, with everything going on domestically, I wanted a method of resistance and peaceful protest that was a little more concrete than writing letters to my representatives here in Utah or calling representatives, both of which are well worth the time. But I was looking for something a little more tangible to do, and came across the Visibility Brigade website and toolkit. But I have to credit my co-organizer here, who's just been a absolutely invaluable asset to our group. She posted on Facebook in this liberal Facebook group for the Salt Lake City area saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting up a Visibility Brigade chapter here in Salt Lake. Is anyone interested?" I saw this at maybe 10:30 at night, immediately latched onto it, and probably stayed up until 3 in the morning, drafting safety protocols and potential messages, and sent it all to her. I think it was a little overwhelming, but this is all to say, she and I are both regular people that met on Facebook, and met in person for the first time actually at our first Overpass protest. So that is, it's a demonstration of sort of the feasibility of DIY activism and peaceful resistance that's so well sort of encapsulated by Dana and the group that he started up with Visibility Brigade. So
Awesome.
long answer to a short question, but we're new to this game, and I just want to recognize a lot of the other Visibility Brigade chapters across the country that have been doing this for years and are really creative about the work they're doing, be it in Orlando or Cleveland or Central Pennsylvania, California.
Yeah, it's amazing.
There's really neat work being done all over the country, not just here in Utah or in New Jersey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the creativity. That's what's so amazing, is that toolkit that I was talking about has been so infused with so many creative ideas that people keep coming up with. And, that's the beauty of what we're doing. I as a filmmaker, as an artist myself, I see this as being an art project, and we collaborate all across the country with all these wonderful people who come up with all these incredible ideas in terms of how do you do it. And, and then we hit challenges that we can certainly talk about. And those challenges, they find, workarounds, all these different ways of dealing with it that I would never have thought of. And so as they do that, then I incorporate those things, those ideas into the toolkit so that everybody can learn from it. And that's how we grow. And, that's the community spirit that we have.
I love that. I mean, both of you and everyone who gets involved in these kind of actions are really just great examples of, like someone thinking, well, what can I possibly do? What kind of difference can I make? And then organizing around that and actually stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit. That's an important first thing, is just to take that step, even if you feel like, what good is this action going to do? Because we have a huge impact, we really do. And I love centering art at the center of it too. It's so important. For just practically, first of all, there are campaigns for like billboards and stuff and digital billboards that I know people are raising a lot of money for right now. They are very expensive, and that's all fine and well, but it lacks that community, and it lacks what grabs people if they're driving by and they see a bunch of people cheering and waving and everything too. And then the art, the art is lacking in those billboards too. So there's so much that you all have going for you. All you need is people power, right? You need people to join in. So I guess my next question, I want to dig in a little bit to it. First of all, how people can get involved. And then you mentioned some of the pitfalls. You're your wife saying, please don't get arrested, right? Yeah, I'm sure you've worked out like where are the, the better areas to do it, or where could should you stay away from? I don't know. Just lay it out for someone who's like, this sounds great. I want to get involved, but I don't want to get in trouble.
Well, first off, I think that there's an element of good trouble that's necessary right now. And
Yeah.
I think John Lewis, if he was alive and on this show, would agree with that. So, I think that first off, what we do is covered under the Constitution, under our First Amendment rights. Now, there are certain areas that have different, rules and regulations, and we have to, work around some of those things. But as a general rule, that's our right. Those are public spaces. And as public spaces, if there's a sidewalk right there, then we have rights to be there and rights to congregate. And that's an important thing for people to understand. I think that's, we have to speak up loudly and clearly about what our rights are, because frankly, they're trying to take them away. And this is an important way of doing it, because it's so visible. Every time that we go up there on an overpass, we are just in person, forget about the social media aspects of taking video and what have you, but in person, we're talking about 10 to 20,000 people, depending on how long we're out there, usually out there for like 90 minutes or so. But there's a lot of people that are seeing us, that are getting that, they're absorbing the messages that we're giving them. So you talked about billboards. One person recently described us as a human billboard company.
Yeah.
And that's, that's
accurate,
an accurate way of sort of describing us. It's very organic. It's very human. And that's really what we're doing right now, is we're in a fight for our humanity, really.
And how have you found it, in Utah, which is a, pretty conservative state? I don't know what areas, you're doing it, Peter, but, what has the response been, where you are and with people going by? Do you get love? Do you get, the opposite of that, or a combination of both?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. We get all kinds of responses, from a lot of love in the form of honks and waves. Every now and then you'll see people, do this out the side window.
Heart sign. Yeah.
We get a lot of one finger salutes, as we like to call them, from folks who disagree with our messages. But regardless of the response we get, we just smile and wave. So we get a range of responses, but especially here in Salt Lake County or Salt Lake City, where we're based, we usually get a pretty positive response. Our particular group, Utah Overpass Action, we make a point to get out of or to go out beyond Salt Lake County and Salt Lake City, both of which are sort of a blue or a liberal oasis in Utah, which of course is a pretty ruby red state otherwise. We've now held overpass protests in 5 counties across Utah, and that is intentional, because we are trying to spread our message, not just among, the more liberal heavy Salt Lake County, but to those more conservative areas. The first reason being to show solidarity with folks in those more conservative areas, be they immigrants or LGBTQ folks or liberals or independents who are concerned about the direction of the country. Show them that they're not alone. The other reason we go to those more conservative areas is to sort of, message on these, what we see as wedge issues, be it, populist economic messaging that we think sort of speaks to the damage to everyday American workers being done by the Build Back Better bill, or focusing on Epstein files issues, which we think is pretty bipartisan, despite what you see in Congress.
Should be,
or messages focused on protecting the Constitution, which we think also has potential to get folks on the other side of the aisle to start thinking, maybe be a little more open to changing their opinion on some issues. But as Dana has said in the past, and I think he's right, there's no 5-letter phrase that we can stick on an overpass that's going to flip someone from voting red to voting blue. And that's not necessarily the goal, although that would be helpful. But we think that focusing on some of these wedge issues again, can just start to start a new thought process among some conservatives to focus on changes in opinion.
And is it decentralized completely where you're getting your messaging, or Dana, do you put out in the toolkit like suggestions for messaging?
So it's as like I was saying about this being an artistic organic process, there's no, and it would be antithetical, right? If I were to dictate, well, today we're going to be doing this message and tomorrow we're going to be doing that, wouldn't work so well.
I mean, it's not bad to be coordinated in some ways.
Oh no, absolutely,
messaging.
And we do.
Yeah.
We do absolutely. There are many times where we all come together and we can talk about some of the actions that we've done across the country, and how they how impactful that's been. So that's a very powerful tool that we use for what we do. But generally speaking, on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, we don't dictate what people should and shouldn't say. There are principles that we have. That when a new group signs up, the leaders agree to the principles, and primarily it's I agreed to be nonviolent. And so any message that in any way smacks of a suggestion of violence in any way is unacceptable. But generally speaking, besides that, we don't dictate what people should and shouldn't say. We discourage the use of profanity because, there are oftentimes kids in the cars with parents.
Right.
And
of course,
that's a turnoff for those parents when the kids goes, "Daddy, what does that F word mean?" Right. So, we're always thinking about how we can bring more people, activate and engage more people, as opposed to pushing people away. That's really the intention of what we do. And certainly with where Peter is located, God bless you, Peter, for putting up the good effort in terms of trying to do that outreach, because I realize it's tough where you live. It's a little bit different in New Jersey, or at least where we're located. We certainly get our share of fingers, but we get a lot of honks. And generally speaking, what we're aiming at is just reminding people of their civic responsibility, that they need to engage, that this is a moment of crisis and we need to treat it as such.
Well said. Especially as we're recording this National Voter Registration Day. So, so let me just ask a simple question of how can people get involved?
They can go straight to visibilitybrigade.com, and that will lead them to all the different things that we have, including the toolkit that I was talking about. And also, can I talk a little bit about our new toolkit that we just released?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So, it's called the Visibility Brigade. It's not called the Overpass Brigade. And the idea is to diversify in terms of creating visibility everywhere. And so one of the things that we did this summer was, as a coordinated effort across the country with hundreds of our overpasses, was the message, "Be brave with us. We'll stand with you." Which I think is a very profound and a powerful, encouraging, and American message. And it's something that we can say, project in a big way, but also we can just say personally to somebody when they're having a difficulty, "Be brave with us. We'll stand with you." And that's what we need right now. We need to come together in that way. So we had on August 15th something called Be Brave Day, where all these overpasses had this message. But that was just really the launch of this idea. And so what we just did this past weekend as a prototype was what we call a Be Brave parade, and which is basically a caravan of, between 10 and 50 cars with a lot of balloons and a lot of noise and, banging the way, honking through the suburbs. It's like we've collected all the honks from the overpass and now we're distributing them into the suburbs, into towns. And my thinking about it is this approach is a defibrillator for democracy, which is what we need right now. We need to remind people, wake up, come out, get activated.
Yeah.
And do it in a boisterous, joyful, because there needs to be joy in everything that we do. Democracy is messy and joyful. That's what fascism isn't. So we must be forceful, but in a joyful way. And we have messaging on the sides of our vehicles, and those all, are there to inspire people, as well as QR codes, because we're driving very, very slowly, that someone can scan, and then it will bring them to not just to our website, but to a landing page that's very specific to things that they can do right now in their community, specific to protecting and fortifying their community against ICE, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the biggest threat that we're facing at the moment. And so, so there are different things that they can do, from donating money to immigrant rights group that's local, to joining a rapid response. Or if they don't want to get that involved, they can go into their town and go into the restaurants and talk to the business owners and say, hey, do you have the correct signage in terms of protecting your employees should ICE appear? So these are all practical things. That's the whole idea of what we do is not just a rah, 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 rah democracy, but to say, hey, here we are, we're having a good time, but we're also really serious in terms of this crisis we're in, and here's what you can do. So that's
you guys
a toolkit
are actually,
that...
You're actually Practivists, so I appreciate that.
That's why we're on the show, right?
Right.
Right. So that toolkit we just released, and it's now on the website as well. Just when you go to the front of it at visibilitybrigade.com, you'll be able to see that toolkit as well.
Great. And as I said, we'll have that link in our show notes. One last question that we end all our interviews with, and I'll start with you, Peter, and then go to you, Dana. What is giving you hope right now?
Well, there's, it's a tough time, but there are a lot of things giving me hope. I think the most hopeful thing that I see is sort of spontaneous acts of resistance and solidarity shown by just individual members of the public, or groups of members of the public coming together to, for example, stand up for undocumented folks in their communities when ICE shows up. In a peaceful way, specifically, doing what they can to protect their neighbors. And, maybe they don't have any training. Oftentimes they're not part of an organized group doing this. They're just driven by a sense of community and integrity to step in when it's called for. And I think, especially during a time when I feel disappointed in a lot of my fellow Americans for what they're willing to put up with in terms of, supporting the unconstitutional actions of the Trump administration. It's so refreshing and inspiring and hopeful to see just these average members, these average everyday Americans doing the right thing. I think on the flip side, it is really hopeful to see the level of especially grassroots organization that's springing up all across the country. Visibility Brigade is a great example, but here in the Salt Lake City area, there's probably been a dozen, if not more, local grassroots organizations that have started up just since January, focused on different issues, of course, but there's clearly an energy and a momentum and a focus, a sense that we need to act now, and we need to organize, and we need to be effective. And so we've seen some neat examples of that in our area. So both the organized resistance and especially that sort of spontaneous resistance, I think is just really inspiring and hopeful.
Yeah, that is very hopeful. I concur with all that, Peter. What about you, Dana? What's giving you hope right now?
I think that Peter said it very eloquently. And what I can add to that is our motto, which is action is the antidote for despair. And the more that we do, the better we feel. And so being a part of this movement keeps me going. And it's really what's so wonderful about it is that I've met so many fantastic, wonderful people, gotten to know so many great people through this process. There's a connectivity that we have, which is very profound. And I think that that's the antidote to what the problem is with our country. So often people are encouraged, just go and be in your home and be by yourself, and don't get together. They don't want us to get together. And so the more that we engage with each other, the more we enjoy each other's company, the better we feel. And that's democracy is the antidote ultimately for fascism. We need more of it. We need more representation. We need better democracy. That's all that we're kind of aiming for here, is getting more people involved. And I'm hoping and praying that this crisis abates, but then people don't just go, oh, okay, I can go back to my lives. That's why we're in this mess to begin with, is that the more engaged that people are, that democracy is something I like to say quite often. We are being evicted from democracy. We have not been paying our rent. We need to be paying our rent on a weekly basis, each and every one of us. We all have a role in this drama. And so if we don't do that, we lose democracy. And, we are fighting to keep it right now. That, when I talk about having the Visibility Brigade's Be Brave parade as a defibrillator for democracy, I mean that sincerely. We are trying to resuscitate our country in a serious way, and we're doing everything we can to do that. And when we see people awaken and engage, it's very hopeful. But we need more of that, and that's why we're doing what we do.
I love that. I love the motto. The previous podcast of the Practivist pod was How We Win, and we always said action is the best antidote for anxiety. So very similar motto.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate you both for doing that, for getting involved and making such a huge impact. And encourage everyone to check out the Visibility Brigade, sign up and join them on an overpass or on the streets or wherever you may find them. And Dana and Peter, thank you so much for being on the Practivist Pod.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate it.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about listener engagement. As always, remember you can call us at 818-824-4286 or email us at hello@practivistpod.com. This, what we're celebrating today came in as an email to me. This is someone who subscribes to my newsletter, Chippewa Valley Indivisible. They are in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. They hit their 6-month anniversary of weekly protests. Every single week they do a protest. They hit their 6-month anniversary and they celebrated over 300 of them by doing a Wizard of Oz themed protest. They got press coverage and they honestly look like they were having a blast. Almost every single attendee was wearing a Wizard of Oz costume, which I'm very impressed. As someone who does not like to get into costumes, I was like, look, they all threw down. And, every single week they're out there and, doing that. This is something that, Heather Cox Richardson talks a lot about, this social proof, showing other people that they're not alone, that there are other people who feel the same way as you and that it is safe to speak out. That's why the Visibility Brigade is so important. That's why these weekly protests in small towns are so important. Keep them up, you guys. And Chippewa Valley Indivisible, amazing work. Really good to see you get that press coverage and the shout out you deserve.
So great. And I love the joy. I love the community that it brings. And, joy in the face of fascism is the perfect act of defiance. So keep it up.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget that all of the links to our actions are in our show notes as always. So don't just listen, click on those links and take action. Please do subscribe, rate, and review our show on Apple, YouTube, or wherever you are listening and watching. Share our show with your friends and family members. Let's blow this thing up and make sure they are taking action to help us win as well. If you are able to support our show on Substack, we'd be very grateful for that. And you get the coveted commercial ad-free version of our show. We will be back next week with some more Practivist Pods. So until then, don't forget, hope is an action. Nope. Yeah, it is. Hope is an action. That's the quote.
Stay strong.